I asked for this meeting as a final condition of the divorce. My wife and her new lover, my former friend and CFO of my company, agreed, probably just to get it over with. After all, I was a beaten man and they had nothing to fear from me. The fact that I caught him in bed with my wife, in our house and in our bed, and then the contempt with which she treated me threw me off balance. They knew they had won and I had lost everything I held dear. The terms of the divorce gave them full ownership of my former company from the day the judge finalized the divorce. Under the no-fault divorce laws in the state where we lived, Marilyn would get half of my 90% ownership, and John, her new lover and partner, would get 10%, so they controlled 55% of the stock, allowing them to make any changes they wanted. In exchange for some consideration, which I will describe briefly, I agreed to give Marilyn the remaining 45% that I owned in the divorce. We agreed to meet at 2 p.m. at my attorney's office and waited for word from the court that the papers had been signed by the judge to proceed. One of the few items I insisted on, besides retaining full ownership of several small, insignificant corporations, was the inclusion of a final judgment clause in the documents. In the divorce, Marilyn had waived all rights to amend or correct the situation after the final documents were signed. I wanted to end this whole sad affair and never see a courtroom again. Surprisingly, there was a fairly full conference room for the meeting. Marilyn and John, her attorney, the corporation counsel and his assistant, my attorney and his assistant, and me. 8 people, former friends and confidants. We sat mostly silent now, the attorneys chatting aimlessly with each other, and the principals just staring at each other almost blankly for a good 10 minutes until we were informed that everything was ready. My life's work, 24 years of sweat and toil, had just been stolen from me by my traitorous bitch of an ex-wife and her fat new boyfriend. The corporate lawyer started the trial. I had known him for years, and to say he was disgusted with what they were doing was putting it mildly. He wanted to withdraw from representing the company, but I asked him to stay on to help fulfill the terms of the divorce and ensure that the interests of the remaining employees were respected. He slid some papers toward me. Robert Williams, it is my sad duty to inform you that you are being relieved of your duties and position as President and CEO of Wilcor Industries effective immediately. You will be allowed supervised access to your office to pick up all personal belongings at an agreed-upon time. Thank you, Peter. I know this is difficult for you as we have been friends and colleagues for a long time. I have already cleaned up my office. We can discuss the terms of my severance package later. Peter looked over the termination letter. I don't see any offer of severance pay here. Really? They wanted to deny me even that? We can come back to that a little later. As far as I'm concerned, I've only been given 1 hour for this conversation, and I'd like to make the most of that time, though I doubt I'll need it. It's nice that they can give me 1 hour in exchange for 25 years of marriage, hard work, and fidelity. First of all, Marilyn, I just have one question. Why? Have I not been a good husband, a good father, a good provider? When you asked for things, didn't I try to provide for you? For a moment, she felt almost ashamed. It was about money, Bob, pure and simple. You know we had a solid offer to sell, $43 million. John would get $4 million and we'd get almost 40. We could travel, get out of this backwater town, move to France or something. This place is a backwater and you seem to like staying in it. What about the employees if we sell the company? They've played as much of a role in the success of this company as we have, even more than you have since you've never worked here. Many of them have worked long hours helping to bring about the success you plan to capitalize on. You know the buyers were planning to close the plant. They only want the patents. They can move production overseas. These are your friends and neighbors, Marilyn. The people you see at community and school events. Our daughters went to school with their sons and daughters until they left for college. You know your customers only want the patents and they will close the factory at the first opportunity. They'll all be left without the jobs that society depends on. What do I care about these knuckleheads? What have they ever done for me? All they care about here is soccer, hunting, and their little lives. I deserve more than that. You think I want to spend the rest of my life doing church baking and PTA fundraisers? And your daughters? How will they keep their heads here when they see their friends and find out their mother has left their families unemployed? My daughters will be fine. Why would they even want to come back to this place? They'll be able to go out into the big world instead of spending their lives in this redneck. I think you may find that you don't know them as well as you think you do. But why the sex? Did you really need to humiliate me and cuckold me with John? Was that part of your master plan? To make me walk away with nothing, not even my dignity? Somehow I don't think you love him the way you once loved me. I wanted 10% of John. With that and the 45% I'd get in the divorce, we could force a sale. Sex was only part of the package. Once we sealed the deal with sex, we both realized there was no turning back. With your narrow morals, your outdated ideas of loyalty, duty, and honor, I knew that once you caught us, you wouldn't be able to forgive us. By putting all the profits back into the company, John has seen no income from it other than a paycheck. And this way he can cash out. He wants to get out of this town as much as I do. But none of us expected you to pull a stunt like this, trading the remaining 45% of the company's stock for a pension and severance pay for all employees laid off due to the sale or forced closure of the company. So you had sex in exchange for money. We're not going to discuss what women who do that are called. And it was all set up from the beginning. I caught you with him in our bed. Yes, you're right. My narrow-minded morals wouldn't allow me to accept that, and I would have insisted on a divorce if you hadn't filed first. Not that it matters, but was it your idea or John's? Let's just say it was a mutual decision made after much discussion. John and I may not like each other, but we share the same views and goals. Look, Bob, we agreed to this meeting as part of the divorce, but it's pretty pointless. What's done is done, and nothing here is going to change that. I know this is hard for you to accept, but this isn't personal. It's strictly business. Okay? Then let's keep it strictly business. I assume John will be the head of Wilcor? John will be president to negotiate the sale, and I'll be acting CEO in the interim. Peter's firm will remain as general counsel under contract. Let's discuss my severance package first. Under the terms of the recently recorded divorce decree, any employee who does not become a shareholder after the entry of the judgment and is terminated for any reason within 3 years of the date the judge signed the papers, which is 2:10 p.m. today, is entitled to 1 year's salary at the rate of pay in effect at the time of signing. In addition, all monies needed to pay 100% severance to all employees have been placed in an independent escrow account that will remain operational even in bankruptcy. In addition, in the event of a sale, if the new owners decide to cease operation of the plant, the severance provision will go into effect. Peter, do you agree that this is the right thing to do? Yes, those are exactly the terms of Marilyn Williams' assumption of ownership spelled out in the divorce decree. As you know, an escrow account has been set up that is overseen by a separate organization. In order to fund that account, Wilcor had to take out a large loan, which I did not advise against, but it was approved by Mrs. Williams' attorneys and monitored by the court. I know you recused yourself from all actions related to this to prevent the appearance of bias or corporate malfeasance, and so you are allowed to participate. Then, under the terms of the decree, since my termination occurred after the divorce was finalized, I am due 1 full year's salary, payable immediately. As you can see from the following documents and copies of recent check stubs, as president and CEO, I am entitled to compensation of $1.2 million per year. I will make a claim against the escrow account for the full amount. Meryl and John, understand that as owners of the company, you are obligated to fully fund that account, and if there is a shortfall, you must cover it before you sell shares and cover any projected shortfall before you sell those same shares. Bill, do you have those papers for me? My attorney handed me some papers across the table. I looked them over for a few minutes before handing copies across the table to Peter, John, and Marilyn. I hereby inform you that Williams Trust Corporation, of which I am president and sole owner, is canceling the manufacturing rights to products protected by patents owned by Williams Trust and currently manufactured by Wilcor Industries, effective at the end of this month. As these production rights have been assigned in the monthly production agreement, you will see that this is in full compliance with the terms of the existing contract and that all rights are unconditionally owned by the Williams Trust. Under the terms of the production contract, Wilcor must also cease and desist from selling all previously produced products at this time. I gave them time to review the documents. After a few minutes, Peter started giggling. John sat with his mouth opening and closing, saying nothing, and Marilyn's lawyers looked worried. "I don't understand what's going on," finally said Marilyn, clearly annoyed by all this. Peter finally answered, and I swear there was a gleam in his eyes. "It appears that Wilcor doesn't own any of the patents, but they are owned by a separate company wholly owned by your ex-husband, which was assigned to him in the divorce decree. Since he leased the patents to Wilcor for only $100 per month per patent, and some of them for over 20 years, the Williams Trust's corporate income is probably less than $100,000 per year. Bob must have arranged this when he founded the company. That is, before I started representing him. I assume my father arranged it for him to protect ownership of the patents in the event of a Wilcor collapse." I just nodded at him. Like I said, we were not only friends but co-workers. "I still don't understand. What does it matter that Bob owns a small corporation with $100,000 in revenue? We don't plan to be in production for long. We were going to sell the company and close it down anyway." John finally exploded at her. "It matters, you stupid cow, because there's nothing to sell. All anyone wants to buy are the patents, and Bob still owns them. All we own is a company with millions in debt and no assets. We can't produce anything, we can't sell anything. We took out a big loan to open this stupid escrow account, and we have no way to recoup our losses. At the end of the month, we will have to lay off all our employees and pay their annual salaries. Even the money for that is tied up and out of our hands. I suppose in 30 days we will be in bankruptcy. At least I'll get a year's salary for this fiasco, but I doubt you'll keep anything." I let Peter have the last word. "Actually, John, as a shareholder at the inception of the company, you are excluded from the severance package to avoid a conflict of interest." Epilogue. Within 6 months, I had purchased all of the Wilcor property at auction and reopened the manufacturing plant. I rehired all my employees who wanted to return to work. Some of them, after receiving their annual salaries, went into other areas such as starting their own businesses or having children, while the rest enjoyed 6 months of paid vacation and 6 months of double pay. Marilyn and John lost everything in bankruptcy, although Marilyn realized her dream of moving out of the neighborhood. When word got out about her intention to ruin so many lives and livelihoods and the contempt she showed for her former friends and neighbors, she could no longer appear in public without whispers and sometimes outright hostility. I helped her rent an apartment, more for my daughter's sake than for hers, but never spoke to her again. I realized that instead of bake sales and parent-teacher conferences, she now spends her time waiting tables. Both of my daughters have come to work for me, agreeing that they enjoy small-town life. And me, I've met a man who seems to like small-town life too, and we're seeing if something can develop between us.